I'm going to start this month with a financial update. I gave one a couple months ago, and I want to provide these periodic financial updates. I think they're important, and not just because I'm serving as treasurer for Rotary International this year, but I have heard in my travels that you all would like to have good communication and transparency on our finances. So I'm going to every now and then share those with you. I do have numbers through October. I'd love to tell you that we have already closed November, but we're just not that fast. So through October, we're doing well. We're $500,000 favorable to the budget overall, and I'll give you a little bit of a breakdown on that. In terms of revenue, overall revenue, we are $1 million behind budget. We're about 300,000 behind on dues, and I'll tell you that when we set our budget for the following year, we're guessing what our starting membership number will be. It's a guess. So we ended up with a little bit lower membership than we would have expected. So as a result, we're about $300,000 behind on dues. Our investment earnings are running ahead by about 300,000. So those were an offset. And really the $1 million shortfall in revenue is simply just lower rental income than we would like to see at our headquarters. It's still a tough commercial real estate market out there for leasing. Although I will tell you that we have a current tenant that is about to take additional space. We're going to be doing some renovation to allow that to happen. So that's going to help, but that's coming up before the end of this fiscal year. On the expense side, we're $1.5 million favorable to budget, so more than the revenue shortfall, which is really good. Primarily on the marketing and the IT expense side, we're running $1.1 million ahead of budget, and then our expenses associated with the building are running $400,000 favorable to budget. So that kind of matches up with the lower rental income we've been able to conserve on the building expenses as well. So I know that's very top level, but in total we are running 500,000 to the good versus our budget. On the Rotary Foundation side, and I'm not the treasurer of the Rotary Foundation, just of Rotary International, but we are running $51.6 million favorable to budget through 4 months. That is mostly driven by investment earnings that are just through the roof, over $40 million favorable to budget. And then notably, we are running ahead on contributions versus our budget. So we're $6.5 million ahead of where we expected to be in Rotary Foundation contributions. And that's really spread across endowment fund, Polio Plus, annual fund, everything is running ahead. So kudos to all of you, and kudos to our colleagues around the world who are supporting the Rotary Foundation so well. The rest of this meeting today is going to be dedicated to talking about Hurricane Melissa, and more specifically the devastation it caused and the relief and recovery efforts that have taken place over the last month. I think you all know it was a historically strong storm. It made landfall in Jamaica, particularly Western Jamaica, and to some extent Central Jamaica, as well as Southern Haiti. It is a very, very difficult situation there. Over 100 people lost their lives or are still missing. It's just awful. Clean water and electricity are scarce in some places. In some places, they're not available. And this is a month after the storm, so it's a very tough situation. So our main presentation today, the full block, will be a report from leaders in District 7020. We'll come back to that shortly, but I thought it was important that we understand exactly what's happening there. As well, at the end of the call, our breakout rooms that we always have, one of those will have the leaders from District 7020 for you to be able to ask questions. If you've been to our Rotary Zones 33-34 website lately, you know that we have set up a link to the DNA RAG. That's the Disaster Network Assistance Rotary Action Group. And they have a specific Hurricane Melissa fund and are supporting District 7020. I have just dropped in the chat a link where you can give us support. You'll see the screen if you go to that link that you see right now on screen. They have collected $110,000 so far, and they have already started making grants to provide relief, specifically to provide life-sustaining items for those who have basically nothing right now. So our friends in the DNA RAG have done a great job of responding, and we have certainly tried to support them by pointing that out during events like this, as well as, like I said, at our zone's website. They're doing great work. We also applied for, District 7020 applied for what is called a disaster of magnitude fund. This is reserved for just the largest disasters that occur in the world. I mean, there have to be over 1 million people affected to even qualify. So this fund was approved, has been established, and this fund lives within the Rotary Foundation. It can accept cash gifts. As you see on screen, you can do that through My Rotary, through your normal donation process. It also can accept DDF, and I know that many of our districts have older rollover DDF from 5 years ago that, if it's not used this year, will revert to the World Fund. And nothing wrong with reverting to the World Fund, but this is an opportunity to be able to apportion some of that DDF to support our brothers and sisters in District 7020. And also qualified IRA distributions can be made. We can help you with that if that's something that you would like to do. I know many of us have IRAs where we must take distributions, and a good way to avoid or good way to handle that is to send that directly to a qualified charity like the Rotary Foundation. I do not have numbers as of this morning for that disaster of magnitude fund, but about a week ago, they had collected in excess of $220,000 US. So these two funds, these two ways that you can donate, of course, that money is going to go directly to support efforts on the ground in District 7020, I think probably exclusively in Haiti and Jamaica, perhaps a few other places. So I'm going to turn the show over now to my friends in District 7020. You see them on your screen. Michael Terrelong is a past assistant governor, and he is chairing the Melissa Recovery Committee. Stephen Hudson is also a past assistant governor, and he's chairing the logistics for the Melissa Recovery Committee. Carice Patterson is the District 7020 secretary, and all three of these fine folks have been working just tirelessly to coordinate efforts in District 7020. I've had the opportunity from a U.S. standpoint to be able to observe the kind of effort and experience that they brought to this effort. I have been incredibly impressed. And that's the reason that I invited them to make the main presentation today. So Mike, Stephen, Carice, I'm going to turn it over to you now, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for being with us today.
Good. Thank you, Patrick. Good afternoon, everyone. You know, on behalf of our District 7020 and our District Governor, William Billy Aiken, we want to thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today to let you know more about the details of Hurricane Melissa disaster, what effects it has had and what impacts, and importantly, how the entire Rotary team is responding to this disaster. As Director Patrick says, I'm Mike Terrelong. I'm chair of the Melissa Recovery Committee. I'm a member of our district disaster team, a director of the Disaster Network of Assistance Rotary Action Group, and also currently chair of the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, which has a little bit to do with this disaster. With us also is PAG Stephen Hudson, who we know as a Rotarian of exemplary commitment and ability, who leads up the difficult logistics team for recovery efforts, and also past President Carice Patterson, our current district secretary, who heads up the communication team on our committee. We want to say special thanks to Director Patrick for encouraging this discussion and extending this opportunity. And to just frankly say how much and how thankful we are and appreciate Patrick's personal input and our participation in our deliberations and efforts. He's there for every meeting. And we are pleasantly surprised by this significant amount of time and encouragement and personal support that he gives us, and for all the sage advice and help. I must say, on behalf of our district, special thanks to all of you for the outpouring of concern, sympathy, and encouragement that you have shown, particularly in Zone 33 and 34, and what you have extended to us. Unfortunately, this situation is still unfolding, and Rotary's response will need to continue and increase in the time ahead. But we are comforted to know that all of Rotary is there for the long haul. So thank you all very much. A little bit of background before we begin about the disaster. We call it prequel. Rotary District 7020 has a long history of dealing with disasters, constantly trying to improve our practices of how we react. And this difficult experience over the years has enabled us to have a very deliberate approach in our district of what sort of actions we take when there is a disaster. We collaborate closely with other districts, particularly the Caribbean, District 7030. And we think of our district actions taking place in three categories. We think of things we do before a disaster as a district. We think of things we do during a disaster, and we think of things that we do after a disaster has occurred. Before a disaster, we prepare. The district does a number of things. We maintain an active preparation stance and focus. We hold district webinars for clubs on disaster preparedness and related topics. We encourage as a district all clubs to have their own individual club disaster plans and for their members to have their personal family plans. We collect a district disaster funds from each of our Rotarians in our district of $5 US per year. And we maintain relations with partners such as the DNA RAG, our local first responders, and the various disaster response groups within the countries and across the region, like the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, CDEMA. But we maintain a posture of being prepared and being ready to deal with a disaster. When a disaster threatens, we watch closely the approach. And before a disaster actually happens, we initiate a specific district disasters committee for that disaster. And thus we have the Melissa Recovery Committee. We tend to meet daily in these committees and take action about that disaster. Let's just look a little bit about the event itself. Melissa moved slowly. The projections were first that it would traverse through the Caribbean, Central Caribbean, and go through Haiti. But that track changed in the last few days and it came westward a bit. Melissa moved very slowly, which heightens the impact. And although it changed course a bit in the final day, it came mostly through Jamaica, but it still greatly affected Western Haiti. For us in the Caribbean and in the Atlantic, Melissa was the strongest Atlantic storm ever. It was unprecedented and difficult to understand what happened until after. And even a month after, we're still understanding the true effects of it. It was designated as a Category 5 hurricane, and 5 is the highest number that you can have. Perhaps if there are higher numbers, it may reach Category 7 or 8 if there was ever such a number. Here's a little illustration of what a Category 5 hurricane does. And this ends at a storm at 150 miles an hour. but you see the effects on your screens of what's happening as the wind speed increases and the effects on structures, on infrastructure, on people through it. Melissa topped out on average over 185 miles an hour with wind gusts of 252 miles an hour in actual measurements. Country focus on Jamaica. We had catastrophic wind and structural damage, right? We thought at first that Cayman, Jamaica, Haiti, Turks and Caicos, and the Bahamas would be affected, but in the end, thank God, it was only Haiti and Jamaica. And following are some information on the two islands. This catastrophic wind, which created structural damage, large sections of flooding from massive amounts of rainfall, and also the sea came in multiple feet high, devastating the coastal areas also with salt water. This is the actual track that Melissa took, right, in its final days. At first, we thought it would come through the capital city, but it coming through mainly the west of the island, parishes that we know as St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, and Trelawney received the greatest impact. It traveled through our most sensitive ecosystem, ecologically, the Coptic country, but it miraculously avoided the capital city, which is fortuitous because that allowed us to be able to, for the capital to better mobilize efforts on the recovery efforts. Stephen or Carice, any thoughts of this track there and the effects that you saw?
Well, I concur with you, PG Mike. Because of the shift in the hurricane, we on the eastern side of the island, we are able to better equipped to source materials and to traverse to the affected areas to aid in the implementation of care packages and other recovery efforts needed. The port and the main port of entry for islands, which is our international airport and the port, we're able to accept things in Kingston and to arrange for logistics and everything else to go into those affected parishes that you're seeing there. So what's highlighted in red is the central into the western sections of the island, and the farther west is the more impact there was.
Just to add for a little bit more information that to give it some sort of clarity on the areas. The geographic position of the hurricane when it went through the western part of the island was more in the more rural areas where building facilities are not at its highest grade compared to the city center of the capital, Kingston. Therefore, as you saw the model earlier, the winds that topped out at 185 miles per hour would have totally devastated any form of structure. So just imagine in those rural areas that you're dealing with board homes, zinc houses, etc., especially in those farming communities in the agricultural farm belt of Jamaica, was completely disintegrated. The closest image that I can explain to each and every one of you is the images that have been world renowned during World War II, the bombing of Japan. That's the closest picture I can ask you to put in your minds and imagine that's exactly what happened in the western parts of the island.
The storm with severe winds created significant structural damage, particularly in the west. The electricity grid and what a lot of other services like water and telecommunications depend on, another infrastructure was just really severely hit. Tens of thousands of people were left homeless, and even today, a month after the storm, this homelessness or people without shelter and the need for emergency shelters still continues. Most roads were impassable, and particularly in the interior hilly regions, many roads were just simply destroyed and whole communities were left marooned without any contact. It brought huge amounts of water, as we have spoken to, and that flooding still continues and is currently increasing in certain areas unexpectedly because our aquifers have filled up and slowly water is draining into our aquifers and the aquifers are rising. So flooding is even increasing in certain areas, particular areas. The areas that were most affected, as Stephen pointed out, were the breadbasket of Jamaica, where people are proud to be growing and feeding themselves. Agriculture there was almost completely destroyed, and it now causing a lot of food insecurity and the need for food packages to feed people. And these are proud people who like to feed themselves. It's destroyed large sections of our tourism industry, our call centers, which has been a major area of employment growth over the last couple of years, and just hobbled business in general, and that still continues in the western area. The electrical grid on which our water systems, our health facilities, our telecommunications, and business desperately depend on are severely affected. The ability of the electricity grid is a major continuing problem and uncertainty for the country, and full restoration, we think, maybe many months away. The cost of just repairing the electricity grid is thought to be several times the value of the main electrical company, which is a strategic problem for our government. Karish, maybe you could just help us with this slide.
Sure. So the electricity, as PG was just indicating, our grid was severely impacted. We know that our company, the Jamaica Public Service Company Limited, has been working assiduously. They had to bring additional help in to assist in rewiring and re-erecting posts that fell down. We experienced concrete posts that were just disseminated, and it has affected communities island-wide. But as it is now, we have over 70% of the electricity restored, and they are working with the government to have at least back to 90% by next year. I believe it was February that was communicated. So we are slowly getting back to being fully powered by the Jamaica Public Service Company. The water, however, is impacted. The supply of water is impacted because what you find with the topography of the lands that are affected, they're mostly uphill. And because of that, we have to use pumps to pump that water to those homes. Those pumps are generated with electricity. So because of the lack of electricity, you can't have the pumps working to supply those waters to those homes. So those homes are without running water. You have that effect on top of the fact that you have flooding, and some have receded, yes, but because of that, you have the exposure to leptospirosis now, because there's an outbreak of leptospirosis because of the stagnant water and the garbage and the inability to remove that in a timely fashion. So we have in those affected areas the issue of potable water. So yes, we are able to identify those communities, and you have care packages being delivered to those communities and buckets of water being delivered to those communities. But we have to now implement a system where they can have it on an ongoing process. So there are NGOs that have been in the island to assist with filtering waters. We have the Rotary local clubs that have assisted in identifying filter systems to assist with filtering the waters, but that is one of our biggest issues now, providing potable water. With communication, we closer to the time or closer to the event, we were we had a disability. We could not communicate with anyone in the affected area. We're still having that issue now, but we know that the Starlinks are more available now. The systems are getting back up and ready. Flow and Digicel, who are our major telecommunication providers, have been trying and working assiduously in getting the systems back up and running, but you still have communities, persons who are unable to reach their family members, so they have to try to identify someone who can assist them in communicating with those family members. So our Rotary clubs have realized that issue. What they are assiduously working to do now is to secure those Starlinks, to have a central point to assist persons to come in to connect to the internet to be able to communicate. So that is slowly getting back to some normalcy, but we're still having that issue with communication between the ports, between not the ports, but the different sections of the island. So we're even in trying to implement projects before had the issue of reaching our Rotarians to determine how they are, firstly, and secondly, how we can help. But we're trying to get back there. And even with the road network, it was impassable at one point, but now we are able to reach certain communities. Some are still impassable, but we're able to reach majority of those communities where we're able to connect to those Rotarians and their family members and the community members to do what we can to help them with potable water and the communication until they're fully back on the grid with electricity.
Carice, tell us a little bit about the human toll on the.
Yes, okay. So at the point, I believe it was the last communication from the government, we had 45 deaths, 19 being investigated to see whether or not it's related to the storm, and we had at least 15 persons still missing. So that is the toll, but we have the effects of the leptospirosis outbreak, which is another toll. We have the effects of the carbon monoxide poisoning because of the fumes from the generators that are just placed. They're not connected in the way that they ought to be. They're just placed to try to fuel some electricity and to help persons save whatever they can in their refrigerator or whatever it is that they need. That carbon monoxide poisoning, that toll is there as well. So that has been added somewhat to the death toll of what's happening here. And the effects, while we still clearing the path and accessing communities, there are possibilities that you may find that other persons are missing and reported deaths. There is, I believe, a situation with 2 members of a family. The house fell on them, and because of the condition of the bodies, the families went ahead and buried, but now the government has exhumed those bodies. So that may be added to the death toll of Hurricane Melissa. So that is something we are anticipating might get or increase. We have the effects of the hospitals. The major hospital, Black River Hospital, is on the coastline, and the hurricane passed over Black River. So that has flattened, but there's a field hospital there. So outside of the Black River Hospital and the hospitals in Westmoreland, we have health clinics that have been impacted. So over 134, I believe, health facilities have been impacted by the hurricane. 5 major hospitals have been impacted by the hurricane, and several dwelling houses, schools, community centers. And the schools, it's taking a toll because we coming out of COVID. And our issue with COVID is having the children connect. So we had that issue of connectivity and trying to implement ways and means how to get those students into the learning curve. And we had a difficulty, especially with rural Jamaica and persons not having the ability to have internet installed in their houses. So you had teachers who had to improvise to have community schooling during COVID. So that is between 2020, 2021, and we got back to some normalcy in 2022. And the kids we have students who started school in COVID. So they're now getting back to the groove of things in 2022, 2023, 2024. I know this has happened, where their schools are completely disseminated. So they're now out of school. So what we find now is that you have students who are going to be sitting external examinations, having to transport to come into Kingston to stay with family or friends, to continue their schooling because it's important. But you have majority students who are still in those communities who cannot benefit from schooling. So there are NGOs that go out and to do some interim schooling, but the school facilities there have been completely destroyed. So we have at least 8 clubs who have identified some schools in the affected areas who are going to be doing infrastructural work through grant applications to get those kids up and running, even if it's a temporary housing to start those students up and running, because the end of term, I believe it's next week. So it's to get those kids back in school by January term so that we don't have that continuous disruption as we did in COVID. As I said, the road access, it's no clear, it's not 100%, but we're able to reach majority communities that have been impacted.
If I may just add to that,
Please.
to the schooling aspect of it, the same area that has been impacted this year was was also impacted last year with Hurricane Beryl. So it's a double whammy. Once they thought they had, seen the light at the end of the tunnel with that hurricane, this hurricane, which was at least one more category higher, came in and just cleaned out whatever was left over from last year. So it's not only a physical aspect of the hurricane, but there's a mental aspect to it also, where there's a great need for mental assistance to help overcome this traumatic situation, because it's, one time is tough, but to deal with it a second time within a year is just, at a point where humanity can only take so much. And for our youngsters who, as you heard earlier, going through COVID and a disaster such as this back-to-back years, it adds that much more stress on the mental of our youth.
Thank you. This is just an overview summary of some of the actions Rotarians are taking. I must say that 1 month after this storm, we're still in a triage situation, just trying to respond to basic humanitarian needs for food, water, shelter, and medical aid, the basic stuff. Many Rotarians in the West continue to live in very difficult personal situations themselves. Most Rotarians there have suffered great personal loss, buildings, roofs themselves, and has to deal with just being without electricity and telecommunications. Hospitals are severely affected. There are some temporary field hospitals in place now, but medical care is precarious. We were all personally glad 8 days after the storm to hear from one of our presidents of the Rotary Club of Black River, where the storm came ashore. After 8 days, we were able to hear from him because he was completely lost. His office and home, we heard, were completely destroyed, and he had to flee the entire area. So it's still very difficult situations in Jamaica. But let's spend some time on Haiti. At first, we thought Haiti would bear the brunt of the storm, but at the last moment, it moved slightly west and to the southwest of Haiti and diverted. Haiti got significant flooding, right? The autobans brought significant rain there, and there's a tremendous issue of flooding of homes, mucking out buildings, and just assisting the community already in a country with a already very difficult humanitarian situation. Like Jamaica, there were many casualties, over 43 confirmed, including children, large loss of homes, most of them completely destroyed, and at least 250,000 people who are directly affected. Continuing health issues in Haiti, like cholera, due to water contamination, have increased with the damage. Rotary is responding like in Jamaica with water filtration systems, working with partners, setting up logistic areas in Haiti to respond. This is our comparative impact of the situation between Jamaica and Haiti. Jamaica may be slightly more affected, but Haiti is very significantly affected and perhaps less able to respond than perhaps Jamaica is. The UN doesn't impact the system, right? And this is what the UN has found. Carice, you want to help with this one? Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's all right. That's perfectly fine. So the UN calls this disaster measured not just in statistics, but in shattered lives. Behind every number is a name, a home, and a heartbeat. So by their assessment, nearly 1.5 million people have been affected. Satellite imagery reveals 4.8 million tons of debris, and we're seeing that when we enter these communities and the inability to remove all of that debris in a timely manner, which is now causing health concerns across the western and central parts of the island. So 1/3 of Jamaica's economy was lost in a single week, and a $150 million catastrophe bond barely covered 3% of the damages that we experience, or damage we experience. So Hurricane Melissa was supercharged by trapped heat and global emissions. And that data is evident and has been the center of the GOP30 climate justice arguments. PG, Stephen, Mike, you want to add anything?
Let me move on to the next slide and we can continue this discussion. It's a historic, unprecedented situation, and we have an urgent need for help in the form of donations and also with material supplies where possible and where effective. We have a need for spending these resources in a long-term, sustainable, resilient manner that really helps us into the future. Many clubs are working. There are many international clubs and districts reaching out to inquire, offer their sympathy and support, and offering to help in many ways. But we have an urgent need for donations, and we thank the Rotary Foundations for that, and the DNA RAG, which had our first funding stream set up with it. So there's the DNA RAG response stream, and that helps persons, particularly in the United States, with tax-exempt status there. There's the Rotary Foundation assistance in terms of the Melissa Response Fund that Director Patrick spoke about, and there's also DDF contributors to it. And there's also a District 7-20 stream directly into Kingston, Jamaica, with the Rotary Club of New Kingston, where donations can be made. And we continue to thank you for what you have done so far and ask you to continue to support us. These are some pictures Director Patrick showed us of the various ways to donate and to help. And even just your words of encouragement are tremendous benefit for us. The road ahead, just to brief in like a few minutes ahead, we are resilient people. We are optimistic and faithful people that are up for the challenge, right? And we are working very hard with partners to improve the long-term things that particularly Rotary is good at, and the long-term rebuilding of communities that only Rotary seems to focus on. Long after the media lights have gone away, Rotary is still there, working heavily. We do have a committee of sorts that assists the district governor in responding. This is our practice throughout the Caribbean over the years in both our district and 7-20. We have a committee that meets, listens to what's happening in the field from the clubs, and tries to bring them assistance in terms of resources and encouragement and just advice on what to do. In such a committee, as we have learned in Rotary through many years, we need to be good at a number of different things. We need to be good at fundraising. We need to be good at logistics to bring in supplies. We need to be good at communications, both in terms of how we communicate to the external world and also how we communicate with our internally to our Rotarians who are on the ground. As time goes by, we will have a whole portfolio of different projects from different clubs with different focus to address the needs. And we need to be good, very good at how we manage those projects to ensure that they are done effectively and that we maintain our high desire for exceptional transparency and accountability that our district has always been known for. We have the local clubs can apply for support in their projects. They know their communities. They know what they want to do. Our committee assists them in that. So these are some of the expected criteria that we would have for clubs that when they apply. Tomorrow is Giving Tuesday, and we're asking you to remember the District 7 to 20 Melissa appeal, and anywhere you can, please assist. We have had tremendous support from just members on just this call I can see already. Thank you, and please continue to keep us in mind, and we very much appreciate the opportunity today to be with you, for your kind attention and all the support. The people of Jamaica and Haiti are very thankful for you. So let's keep working together as Rotary. We have a fair way to go since. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you. And just to add to that, PG Mike, we are having a Zoom webinar on the 18th of December at 6:30 to sensitize everyone about what it is that Rotary is doing and what we will continue to do, and just to appeal for more fundraising there. So we will send out that Zoom information district-wide, world and Zoom-wide, and just to share it among your network so that we can be able to inform everyone of what it is that Rotary is doing, because Rotary is doing a lot here and in Haiti to restore and recover. So thank you.
Thank you. If I may thank everybody for all their assistance and kind generosity. Just to close, this is not a sprint. This is going to be a marathon. I like to say it's a 4x100 or 4x400. We're going to need our partners to help us get it around the circle. But again, thank you from all of us in Jamaica.
Thank you so much, Michael, Stephen, and Carice, for continuing to shine a light on this unbelievable story and just unbelievable human impact that this storm, caused to your country and to Haiti. We are going to open breakouts here shortly. First, we're going to talk about some upcoming events. We have our MAP webinar right around the corner. That's going to be Monday, December 8th. We're going to have a winter wonderland of membership ideas. That's going to be followed up by the always popular public image session on Wednesday, December 10th. That's going to be Ask Me Anything. Always well attended and always very informative. So make sure you get signed up for that one. And then from our foundation folks on December 18th at 6 p.m., our Foundation Matters webinar. And it's time to start talking about Summit 2026. That's going to be October 21st through 25th. Make sure you save those dates on your calendar. And of course, we've got Rotary International Convention coming up in Taipei. That is going to be the 13th through 17th of June in 2026. So make sure you get registered and take care of those, or take advantage of those early registration incentives. All right. And as always, we want you to stay connected on all our social media channels. Like, join, follow, and share. Okay, the way these breakouts are supposed to work. You're going to have about 15 minutes to join one of two breakout sessions. I'll be pressing play on that in just a second. The way it's supposed to work is you should see a pop-up on your screen that allows you to join one of two rooms. We only have two today. They're both super important. You can visit with our Rotary International Director, Patrick. And you can also visit with our kind folks that presented on the Melissa disaster recovery. So I'm going to go ahead and open those. You do not come back to this room. Once the room's closed, you're free to go. Have a great week and a great month.